So today's Tuk Tuk Adventure, Tuk Tuk Adventure number 8. This is dedicated to Mary Awalt. Oh my gosh. She was my partner in crime. We were the sponsors for the class of 2000. And it was a kick in the pants to be working with Mary. So anyway, I'm going to take a tour as I tell this story. We're going along Riverside, and we're going to go to Wat Phnom. Just drive by it. It's a pretty temple. And also the American Embassy. I want to show you, wow, how big the American Embassy is here. But anyway, we're going along Riverside. Lots of places are closed, but there's my favorite Indian restaurant right there. But lots of places are closing. It's getting worse, fans. So I know things in America aren't so wonderful either. Schools here have opened on Monday, but they're opening there were only 20 international schools that were allowed to open with certain rules from the Ministry of Education. So, but they're open, and they're doing kind of a half schedule with secondary. Half of the kids are there 1 week, and then the other half are at home. So they're doing an A and a B week, so they're switching off. But yeah, that's just the way things are right now with the COVID, and we'll see what changes. And also, I sent that headline this morning in the Khmer Times. The borders are still closed. They're not allowing any flights into Thailand, which is really a bummer. Probably not until the first of the year. So I'm stuck here, but that's okay. It's a good place to be right now, and I don't mind. And I've got people like John to take me around where I need to go, so that's a good thing. So anyway, back to the Chronicles of Clovis High School. Mary Awalt. Wow, what a funny lady. I used to get so many laughs from her. We'd be sitting in a department meeting, and she'd pass notes, and they'd be the funniest things. I'm just trying to remember what they were. I kept some of them. They're in a file that's tucked away in my file cabinet at Brent's house in his garage. But anyway, she used to pass these notes, and they would be hilarious. Things like, oh, did you notice the shirt that Dave Menindian wore? It's so nice. And then you'd write a note back to her, and you'd get something back just as funny and weird. So I'm going to stop for right now. Here's Wat Phnom. This is just the basics of it, right outside before you go up to see it. You can see it through the tree line up there, but I'll go in someday. I think it costs a little bit of money, but basically Wat Phnom right here off Riverside, and it's a nice little monument. And we're going to take a little quick trip around. We'll see the American Embassy that's back here. It's like, wow, huge, as they would say in New York and New Jersey. Huge. So, and we're passing some other buildings. So the American Embassy is just right behind Wat Phnom, in that big, beautiful building. That looks like one of them that's in the Emirates or Dubai, but here it is. This is the American Embassy. Look at how big this place is. It is just, wow, I'll use a vocabulary word for you, Mary. It's vacuous. Look at that. Huge complex of the American Embassy. And there's a building on the grounds in back of it. I don't know, that might be part of it too, but it's a big building. So, and just some pretty monuments around the embassies. I think the American Embassy is the only one right here, or there might be the Australian Embassy too. The post office, municipal post office, I went there, sent a fax. Of course, we were 14 hours ahead, California. So, but anyway, back to the story. So, Mary Awalt used to crack us up. She'd pass notes. Ministry of Public Works and Transport. So Mary would pass notes and just keep us all entertained about whatever was going on in the department meeting. But this one year, we did a dance. I think it was sponsored by our junior class. I think it was the Christmas formal, and we did it at the convention center in the big exhibit hall. And right next door, there was a concert, and it was Elton John. He had come to Fresno. It was 1999, probably December. And Mary, she comes up to me. She's so funny. She says, "Oh, Steve, Elton John, he's in concert next door, and I love him." She would always say stuff like that. So I said, "Oh, okay, that's wonderful." So I thought about, what should I do? And this crazy idea popped into my head. I went over and asked the administrator on duty, who is Cheryl Rogers. I said, "Hey Cheryl, would it be okay if I could find a scalper ticket for Mary just to go into the Elton John concert? She really loves Elton John." And Cheryl said, "Yeah, no problem." That's what I liked about the Clovis High administrators. They were always so kicked back and always so wonderful. They always thought of us. They always did things for us. So I thought, okay. So I asked her, "Hey, would it be okay if I stepped out for a little bit and go to see if I can find a ticket?" And she said, "Yeah, no problem." So I stepped out, and probably not 5 minutes later, I was able to get a ticket for Mary. So I bought it. I brought it back inside, found Mary, and said, "Mary, I want you to take this from me. It's a ticket. I want you to go watch Elton John." And she was like, "Oh, that is so wonderful." It wasn't a great ticket. I think it was up in the nosebleeds. But I gave it to her, and she took off and went, and she was probably there maybe an hour. She didn't stay the whole time, but she was there about an hour, and then she came back, and I just asked her, I said, "So how was it?" "Oh, Steve, it was so wonderful. Thank you so much." And Mary was always so gracious and wonderful. I loved working with Mary. I loved being around her. She was always telling funny stories and jokes, kind of like Carlo Prandini. But I remember one time, this is the last thing I'll say about Mary. She could be funny, and sometimes you'd think about it and it's like, wow, that sounds like something a man would say. But we were talking, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but she said, "Oh yeah, you know, the fart that came out with company." And it's like, what? So I would always crack up. Or she'd talk about, "Now remember, when you go in the bathroom, you always have to do the mercy flush." It's like, mercy flush. And so to this day, to be gracious to other people, I always usually flush twice. Once the mercy flush, and then once the regular flush. But Mother Mary, this Tuk Tuk Adventure number 8, this is for you. And damn, I miss you today, Mother Mary. I wish you were here. We'd have some great adventures. But have a great day. Probably have like 8 or 9 grandkids around you today. Knowing you're probably there playing with them all. And I hope you're having a great day. And hope to talk to you all later. Comment. Tell me what you want to see, and I'll try and show you it. So, from Phnom Penh, getting closer and closer to the Royal Palace and my digs, this is Steven Ronzano saying, peace out. Talk to you soon.